In football, the midfield is where games are won and lost. It's the bridge between attack and defense, the engine that drives a team forward, and the wall that shields a fragile backline. But not all midfielders are built the same. Some are destroyers, some are controllers, others are box-to-box dynamos. To the untrained eye, they all play in the middle of the pitch, but their responsibilities, skill sets, and tactical importance are vastly different. Welcome to Art of Midfield. Please subscribe to this channel for more interesting football content. Today, we'll break down the three most essential types of midfielders in the modern game. The hard-hitting defensive midfielder or destroyer, the controller or deep-lying playmaker, and the box-to-box midfielder. We'll explain what makes them unique, look at legendary examples, and explore how these roles have evolved across football history. Let's start with the destroyer. Also known as the holding midfielder, ball winner, or number 6. The destroyer's primary job is simple in theory, but incredibly complex in practice. Win the ball back and protect the defense. This type of midfielder thrives in chaos. They read danger, anticipate passes, close down space, and put in tackles that disrupt the flow of the opposition's attack. But it's not just about crunching challenges. A top-level destroyer must understand positioning, timing, and tactical discipline. One wrong step, and the backline is exposed. This role was personified by players like Gennaro Gattuso, relentless and fearless in tackle. But the true benchmark was Claude Makélélé, whose performance at Real Madrid and Chelsea defined the modern defensive midfielder. He rarely ventured forward, yet his impact was immeasurable. He balanced flair players like Zidane and Figo by doing the dirty work, intercepting, tackling, and recycling possession. More recently, Casemiro brought steel and leadership to Real Madrid's midfield trio. With Modric and Kroos pulling the creative strings, Casemiro did the legwork, shielding the defense and timing his tackles to perfection. Destroyers are often underrated because their work isn't flashy. You won't see them dribbling past 3 players or scoring from distance. Without a destroyer, you're vulnerable in transitions and exposed when the fullbacks push forward. Even Pep Guardiola, a manager known for technical football, relied on physical ball winners. At Bayern, he had Javi Martinez. At City, it's Rodri, a more refined, positionally aware destroyer who can pass like a controller, but still impose himself physically. In summary, the destroyer is the foundation. Without a strong one, your team lacks balance and defensive structure. Now let's move from chaos to control. The controller, or deep-lying playmaker, is often referred to as the regista, an Italian term meaning director. This player dictates the tempo of the match. They control possession, link defense to attack, and decide how fast or slow the game should be. They rarely make highlight reels, but they are the rhythm setters, the silent conductors of the orchestra. Perhaps no one embodies this role better than Andrea Pirlo. He didn't need pace or strength. What he had was vision, elegance, and the ability to drop a 40-yard pass onto a teammate's foot. Pirlo could receive the ball with his back to goal, under pressure, and still pick the perfect pass. He was the heartbeat of AC Milan and later Juventus. He received under pressure, moved intelligently, and rarely gave the ball away. And then you have Xabi Alonso, a mix of both worlds. He could win the ball, yes, but more importantly, he could distribute it with elegance and purpose. His long passing from deep was as dangerous as any striker in the final third. Controllers don't just pass for the sake of it. They look to progress the ball vertically, break lines, and drag opponents out of shape. The best ones are 2 or 3 steps ahead. They manipulate space and force the opposition to dance to their rhythm. In modern football, you'll often find the controller sitting just ahead of the center backs in a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1. Their job is to receive the ball from defenders, resist pressure, and make the first pass that breaks the line. Without a controller, teams struggle to build from the back. The defenders are forced into long balls, and possession becomes chaotic. That's why managers like Guardiola and Ancelotti have always built their teams around players like Busquets, Kroos, or Rodri. The controller is not about stats, it's about influence. They don't need to run the most or tackle the hardest, but they make sure the game flows through them. And finally, the box-to-box midfielder, the most complete and physically demanding role in midfield. Box-to-box players are the team's lungs. They defend in their own box and show up in the opponent's box to score. They combine the grit of a destroyer with the vision of a controller and the movement of a number 10. This is arguably the most dynamic and versatile midfield role. It requires endless stamina, great timing, and quick decision-making. Not every player can be a box-to-box midfielder. You need football IQ, energy, and technical skill. Let's start with Steven Gerrard. At Liverpool, he was everything. He made last-ditch tackles, launched 40-yard passes, and arrived in the box to score screamers. One minute he was tracking back, the next he was launching a counterattack. Frank Lampard took a slightly different approach. He didn't roam as widely, but his timing into the box was elite. He scored over 200 goals as a midfielder, thanks to his late runs, intelligence, and finishing. Yaya Touré, during his peak years at Manchester City, was almost unplayable. His power, pace, and elegance in transition made him the perfect box-to-box midfielder. He could carry the ball from deep and bulldoze through midfielders like a freight train. Today, Jude Bellingham is the evolution of the role. At just 20 years old, he combines defensive awareness with goal-scoring instincts and composure. He presses, scores, creates, and carries the ball with confidence. He's a box-to-box midfielder built for modern football. Box-to-box players are the glue. They connect every phase of play. They support the defense, arrive late in the box, help in wide areas, and recover second balls. Without them, your midfield can become too static, especially if you only rely on a destroyer and a controller. However, this role requires careful management. Too much running, and a player burns out. Poor positioning, and they leave gaps behind. The very best, like Gerrard, Touré, and Bellingham, have the tactical discipline to know when to go and when to hold. How these roles work together. So now that we've defined each role, how do they work together? In elite teams, midfielders are selected for their complementary skill sets. You rarely want three of the same type. Take Real Madrid's legendary trio: Casemiro, the destroyer; Kroos, the controller; Modric, the box-to-box engine. Each had a clear role, yet enough flexibility to adapt. Casemiro covered for Modric's runs. Kroos distributed under pressure. Modric carried the ball and pressed high. At Liverpool under Klopp, Fabinho played destroyer. Thiago controlled possession. Henderson or Wijnaldum filled the box-to-box role, pressing and supporting attacks. Even Pep Guardiola's Manchester City relies on this balance. Rodri is the anchor. De Bruyne is the advanced box-to-box creator. Ilkay Gundogan, until recently, was the hybrid, shuttling between roles as needed. The key is harmony. A midfield trio must provide protection, progression, and penetration. If you overload on creativity, you become soft defensively. If you rely too much on destroyers, you lose rhythm and control. That's why understanding these roles is essential, not just for coaches and analysts, but for fans too. Why this matters to you, the viewer. When you start watching football through this lens, everything changes. You'll notice why some teams struggle to progress the ball from defense. It's not always the defender's fault. It's often the absence of a proper controller. You'll understand why some teams get ripped apart on counterattacks. Maybe their destroyer isn't reading the game properly, or they're playing too high without cover. And you'll appreciate the midfielders who don't score or assist every week, but who quietly dominate the pitch. Next time you watch a match, ask yourself, who's breaking up the play? That's your destroyer. Who's controlling the rhythm? That's your controller. Who's linking everything together? That's your box-to-box. Football is about more than flair and goals. It's about structure, strategy, and subtle details. And nowhere is that more evident than in the midfield. The destroyer, the controller, the box-to-box engine. 3 roles, 3 very different types of players, but all essential. Whether you love the raw aggression of a tackle, the elegance of a perfect pass, or the power of a full-pitch sprint, midfielders offer it all. So next time someone says, he's just a midfielder, show them this video, because in football, there's nothing more complex, more demanding, or more beautiful than mastering the middle.
In my next video, I'm going to explain to you in 3 simple steps on how to become a football agent and earn millions in commissions. Subscribe and turn on notifications for this channel so you get notified whenever I drop a video.